In 3.1, during Mortis' dream and when Tribios killed Janus, we in Tribi were shown some really fast flashing images in between Mortis and Janus' prophecy. This video aims to speculate on the meaning of the script and the implications of the hidden message in the two quests passages, knocking echoes in dreams and passage, reveal the past once more. First off, when you go through the segment frame by frame, the first thing you'll notice is the strange letters on some of the images. It's written in the Amphoria script, which is a made-up script for the region, like how Hoyoverse has made similar scripts for Genshin and Honkai Impact. The issue that stumps many people here is that even when you transcript it to the alphabet, you'll still get a seemingly nonsense string of letters. However, if you're an old hand at decoding Hoyoverse scripts, you'll probably notice instantly that it's actually written as an Alsheri, which is the style of alphabetical writing that drops the vowels and only writes down the consonants. In real life, the first alphabets such as the Proto-Sino-Semitic and the Phoenician alphabets were Alsheris, and for Hoyo writers, many of their games have used Alsheris before. As such, we know for sure that this is intentional and not just a random string of letters to troll people, especially when it was actually shown twice along with a bunch of very suspicious images in key scenes of the story. Now, onto the issue of language, we could narrow it down to either Latin or Greek, because it sure is neither Chinese nor English. Between Latin and Greek, I have done much of the legwork by brute forcing several Latin and Greek dictionaries. The disclaimer here is that I only know a few rudimentary Latin and Greek words used as stems in science, so by brute forcing, I meant I don't know any Latin or Greek. To decode this, I read through every single entry starting with P or F for Latin and Pi or Phi for Greek and manually checked the Liddell, Scott, Jones' Ancient Greek Lexicon, Wiktionary, and Theoi for all entries that can fit the consonant pattern seen in the line. The silver lining here is that since Honkai Star Rail writing team couldn't afford to even travel to Rome this year and overran the budget with the map, probably the devs couldn't hire an actual translator either, and also brute force like me, as in picking these words out of a dictionary, but of course, the standard disclaimer still applies for the grammar, which is quite your mileage, may vary per gratuitous ancient Greek. Anyway, so after several weeks of brute forcing the dictionary and learning some rudimentary Greek grammar, why the hell Greeks have gender for adjectives is something I will never understand. My result is that the sentence could either origin light shines, or white light shines, or origin heroic deliverance brings to light, or white heroic deliverance brings to light. The PGS combo has two main possible results, which are origin, spring Pigeos or Pigos white, either of which would fit the context of Amphorius. Fagusa could be a possible result too, since we actually already have Fagusa in the game, but P in the Ajab should stand for Pi instead of Phi, so I rated it as low confidence compared to either origin, which appeared in one of the OST names of Amphorius, or white, which is part of Phanes' name in Chinese as White Calamity. F and S is the easiest to guess because it maps well to Phos, which means light, or in the case of literary use, means man and heroes. Another possibility is Phaos, which is etymologically cognate to Phanon, Phaon, Phaeton, Phans, and means something like fire, light, or deliverance. I personally think both of the options, Phos and Phaos, are possible. Although I would like to note here that Phos and Phaos are treated as male here, so we can tentatively eliminate Cyrene from the pool of suspects for the Kephael slot this time, or the devs didn't learn the grammar. The last Alsheri is FNS, which could be something along the lines of fans, bring to light, or Phanos, shine. As I have mentioned before, both of these words are cognates with Phanon, Phaon, Phaeton, fans, and all of them have meanings related to light, shine, torch, reveal, manifest. So with the context that the Kephael core flame was swallowing the rest, I think it's pretty safe to say that the FNS is probably something like bring to light or manifest, shine. As a result, bringing everything together, we can chain the words into something like origin light shines, or white light shines, or origin heroic deliverance brings to light, or white heroic deliverance brings to light. Note here is that origin light brings to light is the grammatically correct version, as far as my rudimentary brute forcing can tell, so I would say that it's the one most likely to be correct among the options here, especially when Phanes as the god of the world egg was previously used in Genshin lore as the first descender, and is already connected to Amphorius lore through Prometheus Unbound. To recap from a previous video of mine on the topic back in 2.7, Prometheus Unbound is an iconic romantic work by Percy Shelley as a continuation of Aeschylus' Prometheus Bound. In the story, instead of becoming the mother of Achilles, Thetis gave birth to the child of Zeus, the Demogorgon. As the child prophesied to surpass his father, the Demogorgon was exiled by Zeus in a cave until Asia, Prometheus' wife, found him in the story. As opposed to the other possible son of Thetis, Achilles, who was consumed by rage and struggled between two different aspects of himself, rage and love, the Demogorgon is closer to Patroclus in theme and represents universal love. I have explained this theme of strife and love in my Mighty Eye video, so if you want to read more on the topic, you can check that one out. Anyway, in the finale, the Demogorgon killed Zeus and freed the world from Zeus' tyranny, fulfilling the prophecy. In the end, the Demogorgon spread love throughout the world, allowing new lives to sprout. Of course, as with Amphiaraus and unlike Prometheus Unbound, the Demogorgon isn't always a force of good throughout this figure's long history. Originally, the Demogorgon, or Demiurge in Gnosticism, was the combined figure of Apsu and Tiamat, the Babylonian serpent deities of freshwater and salt water respectively. In Enuma Elish, Apsu was killed by Enki, which led to Tiamat birthing monstrous dragons and serpents in the sea to seek vengeance for her husband. But she, too, was defeated, and the serpentine Tiamat of the salt water was killed. This Sumerian Akkadian Babylonian myth about Apsu and Tiamat evolved to become an archetype of a serpentine dragon of the corrupted sea in the region. As Tiamat arrived in Greece, she was split into two different goddesses, Tethys, the mother of all and wife of Oceanus, and Thetis, the sea nymph who became the mother of Achilles and, in Prometheus Unbound way later on, the mother of the Demogorgon. Meanwhile, in the Near Eastern-influenced Orpheism, the Apsu and Tiamat serpentine god of the dead water archetype once more evolved into a force of good as Phanes, the original god born from the cosmic egg and someone Genshin players are probably very familiar with as the first descender of Teyvat. Entwined by the serpent Ananke and encircled by the world egg, Phanes is usually depicted with a lion mask, a ram, and a buck on his chest in the Mithras mysteries. Of course, in Greek, Phanes is etymologically cognate with Phaeton, Phaenon, Phaeon, all which have meanings related to light. As the light-bringer and the first god of Orpheism, Phanes is associated with time, Kronos, and Saturn, as in the same Saturn that was later associated with Phaeton in Hyginus Astronomica, and Phaeton is Adonis, is Phaeon is Phaenon, is Jo Adonai of the ancient Semitic people, as I have mentioned in the previous Mighty Eye video. But it doesn't stop there. Through Hesiod, Plato, and Aristophanes, Phanes became known as Eros, the primordial god of love born of the cosmic egg, the creator of all gods and humans. Just as Phaenon is the alter ego of the love of Mighty Eye against the strife of Maidiamos, Phaenon as Phanes Eros represents the passion of love, the lovers, the many handsome youths who had sworn to remain insensible, have opened their thighs because of our power and have yielded themselves to their lovers when almost at the end of their youth. At the same time, Plato's Timaeus gave Phanes Eros another title as the creator of the material world, the Demiurgos Nous of Reason. While the Orpheism generally depicted Phanes and Eros positively as a force of good, on the side of the Alexandrian Gnostics, Phanes had been transformed once more into a form more reminiscent of the original archetype of Apsu and Tiamat as the demiurge who imprisoned the goddess Sophia in a cage of the mortal world. Inspired by the Orphic story of Dionysus being shattered by the Titans into many different pieces, the Gnostic Sophia, the Holy Spirit of the light world, the Logos, looked down into the dark water of chaos, leading to the creation of the demiurge as her child and reflection in the abyss. Also known as Yaldabaoth, another iteration of Jo Adonai, as the first archon of humans, the demiurge stole most of his mother Sophia's power to create the material world and the firmament sheltering it from the light realm. For Sophia, because of her sin of looking into the abyss of dark water, she is shattered into pieces and imprisoned in the material world by her son the demiurge, waiting for the day she will be rescued once more by Jesus as the bride of the god. As is the case of humanity in Orpheism, each human is encased in the material flesh of the demiurge and a piece of Sophia's wisdom in their soul, containing potential for both the sin of the demiurge and the enlightenment of Sophia. Digressing a bit here, but if you have played Honkai Impact, you have probably noticed that part of the story in Elysian Realm is based on Gnosticism, specifically the part about Sophia being shattered into many pieces of divinity by an imperfect reflection of her in the water of the abyss, and must be collected again in each human to be remade. And, of course, Alicia is Sophia. Similarly, the reason Kevin stole the authority of finality to make an endless dream called Spiritual Adam for humanity is also for this reason. As a reflection of Kiana, the serpent with lion-headed Kevin is the demiurge to Sophia of Kiana in the Moon Arc, and it was only when he was defeated that the goddess Sophia could ascend and escape the material world that imprisons her. Hence, it's not that much of a surprise that Cyrene Alicia is also fractured into many pieces, and Phanon is the demiurge here. Of course, Gnosticism itself is very diverse, and whether the demiurge Phanes Eros is fundamentally good, or bad, or somewhere in between, differs depending on the branch of Platonic thought and Gnosticism. Orpheism, Plato, and Christianity generally considered the demiurge to be a force of good, whether as the nous of reason or the one true creator of the world, while most Gnostic branches considered the demiurge to be an arrogant fool who prevented humanity from achieving the enlightenment of Sophia, identifying him with Samael, the blind god or Satan. Meanwhile, Valentinus argued that the demiurge is fundamentally good and strives for perfection, even if his actions are itself not perfect. Much later, in 19th century Europe, Percy Shelley's Prometheus Unbound casted his Demogorgon as the good Phanes Eros from Platonic thought, Orpheism, and Christianity, usurping the false tyrant god Zeus and spreading love through the entire universe. But for Phanon, which of these demiurge he is supposed to be? Well, I would wager all of them. In classic Hoyo manners, they have thrown all of these inspirations together and shaken well to craft their character Phanon. Like Phanes Eros of Orpheism and Prometheus Unbound's Demogorgon, Phanon is associated with Saturn and represents the Eros of love in opposition to Maidemo's strife of Achilles. Like the Gnostic demiurge, Phanon as Reaver fragmented Sophia Cyrene into many pieces, one of which became Meme, to presumably steal her authority and remake the material world of the current Amphireus. Like the serpentine sea god Tiamat and like the Gnostic demiurge, Phanon as Reaver is but a darkened reflection in the water abyss, and as such, he is the black tide itself, consuming the enlightened day side in the great flood of the night side. But at the same time, like Prometheus Unbound's Demogorgon, that great flood is motivated by love, and even if it's imperfect, it's fundamentally a way to break the world away from the tyranny of the false god Kephael, giving birth to himself as the Eros in the cosmic egg imprisoned in the dawn device of Kephael. As the Kriemhilde and Brunhild of Amphireus' very own Twilight of the Gods, Phanon, whether as the future Reaver or past Shadow Phanon, is still love, even if it's misguided after all. The funny story here is that we were shown this side of Phanon as Reaver way back in 2.7 when the Nameless Faces MV was released. It's flashing by very quickly, so it's very easy to miss it, but right after Phanon took the golden blood into his body, the next images shown to us were Reaver's mask. In effect, the Phanon we see at the start of Nameless Faces is the Kriemhilde of the future, the lone deliverer fated to be utterly alone after everything had ended, ready to travel to the past day side as Reaver to prevent whatever bad ending that already happened to him by killing all the gods first and breaking the shackles of fate, even if his goal must be realized at the cost of his own life. As Maidemo's is in the role of Siegfried here, we can compare Reaver's motivation with that of Kriemhilde and Brunhild. In the ring cycle, Siegfried met and fell in love with Brunhild first, giving her the cursed gold ring as proof of their lives before he lost his memories and married Kriemhilde. Pissed off by his perceived betrayal, Brunhild disclosed his secret weakness to Hagen and the Nibelungs, conspiring to kill him with his enemies. At the end, as Siegfried lay dying and finally remembered his love for Brunhild, Brunhild regretted her action immensely. She returned the ring to the Rhine maidens, immolating herself and all of God's heaven to cleanse the god's sins. But in Nibelungenlied, Siegfried loved Kriemhilde the princess of the Nibelung first before he met the Valkyrie Queen Brunhild. Siegfried later tricked Brunhild into marrying Gunther, Kriemhilde's brother, but she called him out for this, sparking conflict between Kriemhilde and Brunhild. Kriemhilde took out the ring Siegfried gave her to prove her status to Brunhild. Yes, that same ring. But unlike Brunhild, who actively conspired with the enemies to kill Siegfried, Kriemhilde was tricked into disclosing Siegfried's weakness to Hagen, leading to Siegfried's death in the water. Yes, in the water. You can see where this is going. Maddened from grief, Kriemhilde then went on a roaring rampage of revenge, killing her own brothers, her new husband, and the entire entourage of her new husband before she was killed herself. In Amphireus, Kriemhilde of the future past went on a roaring rampage of revenge from grief, inflicting Underworld's grief on everyone in the vicinity, lighting the Elysium field on fire and killing gods, while the shadow of Nihility Brunhild had just returned the cursed ring to Siegfried Maidiamos, setting off the entire tragedy once more in Amphireus' very own Twilight of the Gods. As such, as Phanes the Demogorgon, as the love of Patroclus to Maidiamos' Achilles, and as Kriemhilde and Brunhild to Maidiamos' Siegfried, Reaver's motivation could only be love here. It certainly isn't the pure love agape you'd expect from Sophia Alicia, but no matter how destructive that love of Eros is, it is still love, in the end. Now, we still don't know the exact details of the ending Reaver was trying to prevent at all cost. The only thing we know for sure is that our Kriemhilde here sure is trying to burn down Heaven of the Gods and kill gods, but from the secret prophecy and the new trailer for 3.2, we can kind of guess what's going to happen in our next bad ending. In the secret prophecy, the origin light shines as Kephael's symbol evolved into that of finality, swallowing the other core flames into one, only for Janus to lead them all to a new world. If you go through everything frame by frame and increase saturation, you can even discern the order of sacrifice for the core flames as each one appeared in the background and doused in the blood splatter of the black tides. The first was Kephael, which could be either Phanon or Cyrene. For Cyrene, she is, of course, Alicia's Sophia once more and was already broken into fragments by Reaver before the story started. As Meme, she was in the exact same position of Kephael in another iteration of this prophecy in the Nameless Faces MV. But of course, since the Foss of the next word is male, and assuming that the Hoyo writers did actually look up on some Greek grammars, the possibility is open that the first Kephael to be sacrificed is actually the Brunhild Phanon, who is quite blatantly the lost shadow of the one without shadow, Reaver. If the scapegoat game is any indication, he must be trapped somewhere before the Phanon of the future, Kriemhilde Reaver, can actually light up the torch of Amphireus and manifest the origin light. It is part of his boss mechanics to absorb all of his past selves to do his ultimate attack of inflicting underworld grief on everyone in the vicinity, after all. The next sacrifices were, as expected, Circes, Aquila, Nicator, Oronix, Thanatos, Zagreus, all of which we have met or are going to meet in 3.2, so it's reasonable to assume they're going to be next on the chopping block for the Samsara to reset. At the same time, we can see that Tantalin, Fagusa, Georios, and Nestia are missing from the secret prophecy, even though some of their symbols are present during the ritual itself, so possibly like the Fate Scam Holy Grail war system. The ritual only needs 7 souls to reach for the Amphireus version of the root. Who knows? Saridra of Tantalin is supposed to bury time itself, at the very least. But regardless of the potential survivors, both the heirs of Circes and Aquila were already foretold to forfeit their lives, with Anaxa being basically a walking corpse by the end of 3.1. Nicodemus' heir, Mighty Eye, has the mother of all flags with his dying and rising god theme, the rage of Heracles and Achilles, his position as Siegfried with the wound in his back, and his storybook telling us how he's going to leave behind the final beauty, which is possibly the red crystal he crushed at the end of the trailer in 3.1 and the same red crystal Castorice was holding for 3.1. If the Gilgamesh parallel holds true, then that should be his source of immortality, the herb at the bottom of the river. For more details on this, you can follow it up in my Mighty Eye video. Oronix's heir, the MC, is already confirmed to be dying at the end of 3.1. That's a done deal. Thanatos heirs, Castoris and her dragon, are already confirmed to be part of the sacrificial ritual in the trailer and are tied to the Moon Cocoon Sanctuary mechanics, which is the global revive passive that got everyone so mad about. Lore-wise, it's just the Moon Cocoon of finality, the reset button of the samsara that Hoyo has been using from Honkai 2 till now. In addition, with lines like, "I will use your soul to sow the seed of suspicion to the new world, and this is the proof that I once lived," I would be surprised if whoever was speaking this line, Castoris or her dragon Pollux, isn't part of the sacrifice after this. At the very least, if the Castoris myriad is any indication, she's sacrificing herself for the MC. Zagreus' heir, Cypher, is shown to be tanking some sort of blast in the 3.2 trailer, which harks back to how Partiphelus died in Honkai 3, tanking the blast of Honkai radiation so that the door to finality could open. So I would say that's pretty flagged too. And of course, before Janus could wither and open the passage to the new world, just as there are two scapegoats, just as there are Kriemhilde and Brunhild, Caphael appeared once more, signifying that Kriemhilde Reaver is also supposed to be the final sacrifice, aligning with what we have seen of the ritual itself in the Nameless Faces song. And from the song, we can kind of piece together two possible endings for Amphireus. If we take into account Gnostic myths, the true ending is likely the one with Sophia Cyrene being stitched together once more from the shattered pieces and ascending back to the Enlightenment realm, which, in this case, is likely ascending back into March in space, beyond the firmament of the old Amphireus story. However, since the Amphireus plot is still continuing up until 3.7, this is unlikely to be what will happen in 3.2. As such, it is here that we might go through the Prometheus Unbound ending instead, with the Foss of Origin light being analyzed as the male Phanon. As the Demogorgon of the story, Phanon Eros continues the eternal return of the samsara under the firmament, perpetually locking the material world of Amphireus in the endless dream of spiritual Adam with his own death for the sake of love. Among the Greek gods, another god identified as an aspect of the winged lion bull sun god Phanes Eros is Pan. In his homeland in Arcadia, Pan is the satyr god of nature, shepherds, and fertility. As a god symbolizing the seasons and the sun's path through the 12 zodiacs, Pan, alongside Kronos, Heracles, and Dionysus, are considered to be another version of the sun god Phanes Eros. One special thing about Pan is that he is the only Greek god who is said to be dead. With his goat lower half, it is easy to confuse him with Demusid, the Mesopotamian golden scapegoat of the season and fertility, which was presumably what happened here when the Greeks learnt of the Phoenicians' mourning festival for Demusid. According to Plutarch, when Thamus traveled through the island of Paxi, a divine voice called out to him, "Thamus, are you there? When you reach Palodes, take care to proclaim that the great god Pan is dead." As such, like the eternally dying and rising Demusid of the Sumerian, Phanes is dead. He remains dead. Eros has killed him. How shall the sinner, murderer of all murderers, console himself? And yet, the scapegoat still awaits his resurrection every spring, waiting to be saved from his own eternal dream under the firmament of his own making. Or, as the golden scapegoat murmurs, the sinner traveler was also surprised by himself. The world's evils, time, have taught him all languages, but he has also lost his own language. Humans are an anomaly, for only they possess the light, and only they are deemed worthy of being slain. Light, strife, is indeed the great evil that he brought unto this world. As punishment, his reason, spark, or whatever this is called, has long been stripped away like a peeled onion, dismembered piece by piece. Too many people die too late, yet some die too soon. The Lamb says that death is a major affair as worthy of import as the most grandiose festival. Festivals won't just happen once, but death cannot be rewound. But you have already stepped on the altar countless times. I am the assistant priest killer after all, so I know it well. That wasn't me. Seriously, it wasn't. Don't pretend to be so relaxed. You're right. Sorry. To deliver the firelight, we sinners killed ourselves every time.